Hello everyone, welcome to Achievers IAS classes. Let's begin our discussion on the national events of 28th December 2017. The first issue is regarding the National Human Rights Commission and the right to education of children, and it is regarding the suo motu cognizance taken by the NHRC regarding the recent decision of the Maharashtra government to shut down around 1300 Zilla Parishad schools. The decision was taken by the state government because most of the schools have less than 10 students, and the students from these schools would be shifted to nearby schools. The decision could adversely impact students, particularly those from the rural and poorer sections of the society who cannot afford private schools. The state government, on its part, is arguing that the fact that these schools had 10 or less children points towards the poor quality of education offered by these schools. What is important to us from the examination point of view is the Right to Education Act mandates that children up to class 5 should have access to schools within 1 kilometer of their homes, while students of class 6 to class 8 should have schools within 3 kilometers of their residence. The government decision is seen as a violation of this norm and denial of the right to education guaranteed by the Act. UPSC in the previous prelims examination as well as in the mains examination has asked about the provisions of a particular act in detail. Therefore, we need to focus on every provision of act which deals with the vulnerable sections of the society. In this case, rights of children. With that, let's move on to the next issue in news today, which is regarding the issue of online sex determination ads. The issue is in news because major online search engines such as Google, Yahoo, etc. should cooperate with the central government and make concrete suggestions against the publication of advertisements about prenatal sex determination. We all know sex determination of the fetus is a crime in India according to the Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act. Some of the provisions under the said act include: it prohibits sex selection both before and after conception. It regulates the use of prenatal diagnostic techniques for use in only certain cases, mainly to detect any defects in the fetal development. It further prohibits any person from communicating the sex of the fetus by any means, be it words or signs, and any violation of this act will attract a jail term of 3 years and a fine as well. The act further mandates compulsory registration of all diagnostic laboratories, genetic counseling centers, ultrasound clinics, etc. Given the falling child sex ratio, it is a very serious issue and it requires the participation of all stakeholders to counter the menace of sex selective abortion. With that, let's move on to the next issue in news, which is about the concerns raised over the fiscal health of central government. The article is talking about the decision of the central government to borrow an additional 50,000 crore in this financial year, which some economists feel could result in the government missing its fiscal deficit target of 3.2% of the GDP. The borrowing couldn't have been avoided given the shortcomings of revenue collection due to the implementation of the GST. The increased government borrowing was anticipated by various economists. But what is more worrying is many economists have predicted that the next fiscal year too will result in a higher fiscal deficit because the government cannot afford to go for fiscal consolidation in an election year since it has to spend more to push growth in the economy. We'll further look into this issue once the budget of the next fiscal year is out. The next issue is regarding the recent video released by the Islamic State. The issue is important because this is the first Kashmir-centric video released by the terrorist outfit ISIS, and security agencies have identified the man in the video as a local Kashmiri youth. Given the competition between various terror outfits in the region to attract people and funds, this is a worrying development from the point of view of India's security. However, some analysts feel that it could be one of the ploys of Pakistani intelligence agencies to show themselves as the victims of terror, as the man in the video accuses various terrorist organizations operating out of Pakistan as proxies of ISI and not sensitive to the demand of Kashmiris. We'll look into the issue in further detail as it evolves in the future. Till then, let's move on to the next issue in news today, which is an editorial about the recent meeting between former naval commander Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav and his family in Pakistan. We saw in yesterday's news analysis the various concerns and shortcomings in the meeting between Mr. Jadhav and his family, which gave rise to fears that bilateral ties could further deteriorate between India and Pakistan. This is because the nature in which the whole issue has been handled by Pakistan, starting from a secret military court trial of Mr. Jadhav on terrorism and spying charges based on non-conclusive evidence, then not allowing consular access to Mr. Jadhav, and finally, after India dragged Pakistan to the International Court of Justice, and several months later, Pakistan decided to allow the meeting between Mr. Jadhav and family. But the manner in which this meeting was conducted and the hostile nature of journalists has been highlighted all over the media. The editorial today is talking about what needs to be done to secure the release of Mr. Jadhav rather than highlighting the shortcomings of the meeting. Firstly, even in Indian prisons, most prison manuals mandate the removal of all metal objects and most accessories, and world over, prisoner family meetings take place across the glass screens when the suspect is accused of involvement in terrorist activities. Therefore, instead of highlighting these things, India should engage in quiet diplomacy with Pakistan and persuade Pakistan to secure the release of Mr. Jadhav. Hence, we should refrain from political point scoring at this stage, which could be counterproductive. Instead, put our best efforts for the safe release of Mr. Jadhav. With that, let's move on to the next issue in news, which is regarding India's vote at the United Nations for the peaceful resolution of the issue of Jerusalem based on negotiations between Israel and Palestine. The news article is talking about the unhappiness expressed by Israel over India's decision, but has put behind the issue in a diplomatic manner given other areas of interest between Israel and India. In this regard, the upcoming visit of Israeli Prime Minister to India will be primarily focusing on technology related to agriculture, water conservation, in which Israel is a global leader, and on cooperation in the area of tackling terrorism. This indicates the strength of the relationship between the two countries, given that India stood firm in its traditional position on the Israel Palestine peace process. The next issue is regarding the recent statement issued by the central government in the Lok Sabha on China's maritime ambitions in the region. The central government has informed the Lok Sabha that it is aware of Chinese activities in the region and it is keeping a close watch on all the developments that threaten India's security. As I have already discussed, China has increased its footprint in the region further by signing the free trade agreement with Maldives, and the statement made by the center in the Lok Sabha in this background makes it all the more important. With that, let's move on to the next issue, which is about the recent launch of air freight corridor service between Kabul and Mumbai. This is a significant bilateral development to boost trade between these regions and also overcome the barriers created by Pakistan for India's access to Afghanistan. And it comes at a time when there is a trilateral talk going between Afghanistan, Pakistan, and China towards greater integration of the region along the proposed China-Pakistan economic corridor. The other issues of the day include the expectation of counter-attacks by Pakistan post the cross-border raid by Indian Army. I have discussed the issue in detail in yesterday's news analysis, and I request those who have missed it to go back and watch the same. The next news item is regarding the Ganga Sagar Mela to be held in West Bengal in the month of January and February. It is said that a dip in the holy river Ganga on the day of Makar Sankranti becomes a source of salvation, and the Ganga Sagar Mela is extremely sacred in the region. With that, I conclude today's news analysis. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.